Ladies and gentlemen, some 50 years ago when Borje, Salming and Inge Hammastrom joined the Toronto Maple Leafs as part of the Swedish invasion, the first wave in NHL history, there was a lot of hype. Now, Toronto had a very good team in the 1973-74 season, some strong draft picks, and were it not for Boston that year, they could have easily took on the Flyers in the Stanley Cup final. They were that good. But Boston had their number that year. They only could have a minimal effort against the Bruins, losing in 4 straight in the postseason. So today we're talking a little bit about the 73-74 season, the importance of Borje and Inge showing up, and also the draft of Lanny McDonald. Now, the 74 Toronto Maple Leaf season was the 57th campaign for the Buds. It's 47th as the Maple Leafs. The Leafs placed fourth to make the playoffs, but were swept in the first round by the Bruins. Again, a very solid record in the East, fourth overall, 35, 27, and 16, 274 goals for, 230 against. With Jim Gregory as GM, Red Kelly as coach, and Dave Keon at captain, and when also having Sittler, Ullman, Brian Glennie, Doug Favell, they had a lot of talent. Now, they made several signings that would improve their team that campaign. At the entry draft, the Buds chose Lanny McDonald with their fourth overall draft pick. He would play 6.5 seasons with the Maple Leafs and become the icon for not only his squad, but for the other teams he skated for, including Stanley Cup champion Calgary in '89. Now, Bernie Parent, who had left the team for the WHA in '72, made it known that he wanted to return to the NHL. The NHL still had his NHL rights, and he traded Parent to the Flyers for Doug Favell and a first-round draft pick, which ended up being Bob Neely. Bob Neely would play 4 seasons for the Maple Leafs before being traded to the Colorado Rockies. Now, in a first for Toronto and for the NHL, no matter, the club signed players from Europe. Toronto signed Salming and Inge Hammastrom, who were very strong in the Olympic program and also in the Team Sweden Elite League. Salming had made the All-Star team at the 73 World Championships, and Hammastrom was one of the top scorers in Sweden. Both had played for Brynäs of the Swedish League, and the Leafs had to pay the Swedish Ice Hockey Federation for their release. Some people say it was in the 6 figures, and people are very confused. Was it Jerry McNamara or Harold Ballard that first saw him? We still don't know, but the story is McNamara was sent over to scout him. Now, Salming would play with the Leafs until '89, and of course, he announced he's recently diagnosed with ALS, and he played with the Red Wings in his last season. Hammastrom would play 5 seasons in Toronto before moving to the St. Louis Blues. Now again, Toronto ended up with a plus 44, and there were approximately 12 points out of third, and a full 13 away from the Montreal Canadiens, who were second overall. Of course, they lost to the Rangers in the quarterfinals. Now, Toronto had some good success early on. They went 9-5-5 in the first 19 games and were consistent throughout the season. Again, they had some rough patches trying to figure out their goalie situation. Now, that year, Sittler had 84 points, Ullman had 69. The great Paul Henderson was still there with 55 points in 69 games, of course, before he jumped to the Toronto Toros. Davey Keon had 53 points in 74 games. Ronnie Ellis had 23 goals in 70 games, while Hammastrom put up some decent numbers, 43 points in 66 games, including 20 goals. Now, Salming was second overall for defensemen with 39 points with 5 goals, and Ian Turnbull again had 35 points, including 8 counters. Now, Lanny McDonald had 30 points in 70 games and a good first campaign. Eddie Shack had returned. Errol Thompson was still in the mix. George Ferguson as well. But he also worked Eddie Johnson and Doug Wilson. He had no true number 1 that year. Favell went 14-7-9. Eddie Johnson, the former Bruin, went 12-9-4, while Doug Wilson, the former Canuck, went 9-11-3. Now, in the playoffs, again, they lost 4 straight to Boston, where, again, no offense in the postseason. Eddie Shack scored 1 big goal in the postseason, but it didn't work out. Now, that year was very, very strange because the they picked up some key players in the offseason, including Eddie Johnson, Willie Brossard, Dunk Wilson, and Eddie Shack from the Penguins, and Tim Ecclestone as well from Detroit, and Bill Flett, who basically, was a big goal scorer. And eventually, again, Eddie Johnson was traded late in the season for Gary Sabrin. So now, Toronto draft picks that year, very, very strong. Lanny McDonald, Bob Neely, and Ian Turnbull, they're 3 number ones, one of the best drafts ever for Toronto. Some key names included Gordy Titcomb and Frank Rachon, one of their first ever picks from the Q League. It didn't work out, but a good prospect nonetheless. Now, how it worked back then, ladies and gentlemen, Harold Ballard was still running the team. Now, everything played together for Toronto to make a strong playoff run. But the problem is he had no decent number one that year to like a Mike Palmateer style. But Salming and Hammastrom, it was very unique because at the time the Montreal Canadiens, Ken Dryden had left. He was articling for his law degree. And a lot of people felt that Toronto was the key team on Hockey Night in Canada that year, and it showed the trend that the Americans became more enamored of the NHL Hockey Night in Canada because of the Swedish influence. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's a little background on Borje Salming's first season in the NHL with Inge Hammastrom as well. We thank you for listening. Bye.